Hey guys, so to continue on with our episodes of the science of dog training, previously we discussed positive reinforcement, and now we're going to talk about negative reinforcement. So the waters get a little deeper, so to speak, with negative reinforcement. There's a little more to understand. So the first thing I want to talk about is reinforcement. What does it do? Well, reinforcement is the opposite of punishment. Punishment makes it less likely for a behavior to happen again. Reinforcement makes it more likely for a behavior to happen again. So we already know about positive reinforcement. We discussed that. So in negative reinforcement, what is it? We have a dog in a large rectangular box. That rectangular box is divided into two square portions with a divider in the middle, a short divider that the dog is able to jump over. On both ends of the boxes is a light, and the floor is a metallic surface that the dog stands upon. That metallic surface can be charged with a small amount of electricity. So let's say the dog is on one side of the box and the light comes on and there's electrical current that's put into the floor, and the dog gets the hot feet, and then he likely is going to jump over into the other section, the other box, which is non-electrically charged. We do this a number of times. Light comes on, electricity comes on, the dog jumps to the other side. The dog is right now learning to escape the pressure, the compulsion, the aversion, the force, whatever. So we do this a few times. Light comes on and floor is charged electrically. Dog gets a little hot feet and goes to the other side. Light comes on again, goes back. After a number of repetitions, and depending upon the individual capability, intelligence level, whatever of the dog is going to pick up on this and begin to go into avoidance of the negative reinforcement. And that is, the light comes on and the dog already knows, get to the other side. Light comes on over here after a period of time, the dog knows it's coming. Avoid, escape or avoid that compulsion, get to the other side. And so the dog can do this literally all day long. Now, what does this look like in dog training? How can we use this negative reinforcement? Well, this negative reinforcement in dog training can be used as pressure, force, compulsion, aversive, whatever you want to call it, in the form of pick a collar, any collar, choke collar, flat collar, pinch or prong collar, whatever, and also electronic collars. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's say I give the command to sit to the dog, and the dog doesn't sit, and I apply pressure. I apply upward pressure. I can apply it in a continuous manner, or I can apply it in a series of pops. Sit, pop, sit, pop, or sit and just pull, right? There's a force, there's an application of compulsion, aversion, that the dog can escape by sitting down, and then I would immediately relieve the pressure off the dog's collar, right? Over time, just like the dog jumping back and forth from the electricity on the floor panels, the dog goes out of escape and can now avoid that compulsion altogether by simply obeying the command. If it's sit, and then they know the pressure is going to come in an upward manner, put my butt down, gets my head up, pressure is relieved, right? So our timing is important in the app. Now with the electronic collar, it's something similar. We could apply rather than a continuous pressure on the leash, we could apply a continuous pressure on the e-collar, right? Of course, now, before we go into using an electronic collar on the dog and providing an electrical stimulation at any level, the dog should already know the command. The dog should have already been trained through positive reinforcement and luring with treats into positions, maybe then reinforcing with those behaviors that are taught with negative reinforcement with a collar, for instance, before we would ever go to something like an electronic collar. But just an example of the application with an electronic collar at a low level, one that the dog is stimulated by, the dog feels, right, which we determine, we'll discuss that in a totally different episode or situation. But we know that the dog senses, feels that pressure at a certain level. It's enough to stimulate the dog, but not overpowering, certainly. And I could say, sit, press, until the dog is in the seated position, and then no more stimulation. Or similarly, I could apply a continuous low-level stimulation. Sit, sit, sit. Now keep in mind, I can also do this with a leash while I'm providing electric stimulation. Okay, so that's just some basic information on negative reinforcement. Now, you may say, well, I'm force-free, I'm positive only, positive reinforcement. I don't believe in any forms of compulsion, aversion, force, aversives. Okay, that's fine. I'm a balance trainer. I believe there's a time and a place for, in certain situations, an amount of force to be used. Hello. I got the click-clack of 2 dogs and 32 toenails driving me nuts while I am trying to concentrate and produce a video. You don't care about the video production, do you? When you think compulsion is bad, when you think any form of pressure, any form of negative reinforcement or positive punishment is a terrible, terrible thing to apply to a fellow animal at any level of any kind. What about this? You remember in like school when we were children, you remember the hand slap game? You know, this thing, right? I try to get you, you try to get me. That's aversive, right? It's a slap on the hand. It doesn't hurt, it's a very low level, granted. It could be pretty hard if the kid was big and fast enough to get you, put the smack on you. But what about this? How cool is it when you receive notification or there's the twitch and you avoid it? What's that like when you avoid that compulsion, that aversive? You go, ha, 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 I got you, you missed me, and you probably throw a couple expletives in there. Well, it can be the same way for your dog. It can be fun. For instance, sit, and the dog knows the compulsion is coming, but then he avoids it completely by being fast enough, right, in his behavior. And then you go, oh, wow, you got me. Boom, and out comes the toy as positive reinforcement instead of the negative reinforcement. So really kind of a cool concept and a fun game. We all played that as kids, or at least I did a lot. And it was a lot of fun, and it was really fun. It was cool to get the other person, right? Be the slapper. But when you avoided, I guess you're the slappy. When you avoided that, and you're like, ha, sucker, cool. Now it's my turn. I'm going to give it back. That was so much fun, right? It can be the same kind of fun for your dog. So think about that. We're going to talk about more of the 4 quadrants coming up. We have positive punishment and negative punishment remaining. Take care.